And I've seen individuals lose their life or lives over less than $1, over a bag of chips. It's just nowhere you want to be. Whoever attempts to glorify prison or prison life to you, or ever, or you think it's okay, it's not cool in there, man.
Hi, I'm Terrence Hardge. Thank you for joining us on Heart to Hearts. Today's guest is a man who served nearly 17 years in prison, but he had been sentenced to 144 years. Once he was released, he married his wife and opened a successful cosmetology school, helping people in the community. From prison to principal, his story inspires. Christopher Life Willars, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, sir. So help us understand life. How does a 19-year-old who has good grades, who was active duty in the United States Air Force, how does he get into trouble?
I love answering this question, and I just say simply the same way a lot of good, 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 17, year olds get in trouble. I didn't have the necessary support in what I consider the most volatile moment of development. And I say volatile because um, for me, I was growing up in Chicago, seeing some things. Um, and then, yeah, I was in the military and I was excelling, but I was still slightly angry. There was some trauma there. There was some unresolved issues with my parents getting a divorce. So I carried these things with me, and without them being, I like properly addressed. Eventually, they kind of came out or came to the surface in the wrong way.
I feel like I can identify. I don't easily say I can identify because we don't know everybody's circumstance, but I
That's fair.
too am from the Midwest. My
Mhm.
parents also divorced when I was very young, and I talked about in a recent episode about how that affected me. Life, it also fueled the energy for my first novel, Innocent Guilt, which deals heavily with the issue of an absentee father and how it devastates the main character named Moses. And I know you're working on your own book as well, and I encourage people to go out there and support. But tell me, what kind of support do you wish that you had had growing up?
Man, my mother is an angel, and my father was a good man too. They were just, they grew apart for whatever reasons. But I think I just in those moments, in those years, I needed that male presence in my life. My father, when they split, had moved out the state. He had moved down to Texas. So, and then me in the military being, shipped off to here, there, I didn't have access to him anyways. But I needed a stronger male role model, somebody that could challenge me. Because my mother, there was a point where she couldn't, not the way I needed to be challenged. And it was just that situation. And above all else, if not that, I just wish I would have had somebody that would have listened the right way I needed somebody to listen.
Totally understandable. Can you tell us about that day that led to the charges?
In short, as we were just speaking to her, as I was alluding to, I went from being this 19-year-old kid that, found his way out of Chicago into the military, was doing okay. And then again, because I didn't have the proper outlets, and somebody would say, well, you were in the military. And I'll tell you, just because you're in the military does not mean you're in a positive, supportive environment. There are a lot of people that are just,
Yeah.
escaping negative, trauma-filled environments that are battling things with a uniform on, and salute to our veterans because I'm one too, and our soldiers. But I don't know. It because I didn't have that proper place to channel what I felt, those frustrations or whatever. It was only a matter of time until I met a certain situation or person that could kind of spark that negativity that was there, festering, that was unaddressed. And for that spark for me was my older cousin. Um, and I always, when I tell this story, I hold myself accountable. I don't want to sit here and ever paint the picture like he made me get in the vehicle, but I will tell you, we talk about peer pressure and things because they're a very real thing. And now, as a 41-year-old man, former veteran, former gang member that did time in prison, um, and all these things, I'll still tell you, back then it was peer pressure. That's what got me. on top of that, it's no different. In this situation, I didn't join a gang. I was just following an older cousin and his homeboys in that moment. But it's no different than a kid growing up in Chicago, Cali, New York. You dealing with some things, and you find you click up with some people, and they're fostering more negative thinking habits than anything else. And that's what my cousin was on. I call him and his friends like two-bit hustlers. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Now coming from somebody that unfortunately knows the streets, and the reality of them, they were some people that were playing the streets. They were 10 years older than me, at the least, of the three, and my cousin and his two friends. And I'd find my way over there, and they would always talk about robbing places or doing this and doing that. And I would never feed into it. And then one day, out of frustration, I was like, man, you know what? I'm tired of you guys talking. Let's go. It was just one of those things. I was, young man, they talking trash. Well, you ain't gonna go with us anyways. The only reason we ain't go because you ain't gonna drive. Da 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 da. Because that was the whole thing. They were trying to get me to just be the driver.
Right.
And then after 1 or 2 months of that peer pressure, those jokes, that whatever that energy be throwing at me, I folded. And I said, all right, let's go.
And nobody was hurt though, right?
No, so that the actual crime, in short, was a robbery, and the weapon was a BB gun. And I never got out the vehicle, and nobody was physically harmed. And I
Wow.
understand, yeah, I understand mental and emotional trauma, and I'll never downplay that. But um, to give a 19-year-old, young man 144 years for being a driver in a robbery, of which the weapon was not even a real weapon, it was a BB gun. That's crazy. What I'm saying?
Wow.
I can sit here and I get, and I'm grateful I get to go out to all these places and I speak. I'm going to California in a few weeks and all that. And I will never try to make that point or state that point in an eloquent way. I just, it's crazy. That's I need, yeah, to give that, but that's what's going on in courtrooms across the country Monday through Friday to this day.
Do you remember your first days in prison? Can you share some information about that?
Well, jail or prison? Because I always tell people there's a difference.
Tell us the difference for those who don't understand.
Yeah, so man, my first days in jail, which is where you go when you're initially locked up. Oh man, I was an infant in that area, in that environment. I knew nothing of that place. It was foreign to me. I wasn't given the bond. I wasn't, given the opportunity to come home. Once I was locked up, that was it.
Mm.
But I was placed in the hole, and the first thing I remember about being in jail, I couldn't eat the food. I couldn't even take the smell of it. The milk made me want to, vomit.
Wow.
And the smells down there, because and the noises, and it just smacks you. But when you're at the jail, you're still in the city that you were living, or where the crime was committed. There's some sort of familiarity generally there when you're at the jail. You're typically going to know more people, especially if you're from that town, whatnot. Even though I wasn't there, I did live there for a few months before getting incarcerated. Prison is a different game. While jail, a lot of people are going home. Prison, this is where people are staying. This is where they live. And for me, my prison stay, I went from jail to a level 4 prison, maximum security, where over 70% of the camp had life sentences.
Oh
And
wow.
I went there again as a first time offender, former veteran. I always got to illustrate that point. Driver of a robbery that involved a BB gun. The biggest thing with prison is you understand very quickly you may not make it home from it. You know that.
I've heard you talk about the different levels. I even saw you talk about how it was difficult to go down to a level one. Can you
Yeah.
talk about those different levels and the challenges there?
Yeah. So for me, I was on a level 4, which was I say 23-1, but really it was about 18-6. 18 hours you'll be in your cell, 6 hours you'll be out. Very controlled, to the point where they had gunners in the pod. Individuals that had guns that could shoot rubber projectiles or live rounds if needed, pointed at you. So when you're in the pod trying to watch TV, there's a gun pointed at you. When you're going to take a shower, there's a gun pointed at you.
Wow.
When you're on the phone trying to tell your mother you love her, and you're sorry that you're going through this, there's a gun pointed at you. Same thing when you go to chow. When you're going to eat, there's a gun pointed at you. And this is all I knew for years. And I tell people PTSD is real,
Hmm.
and there's levels to it, just like prison, right?
Right.
So when I got shipped to a level 3, I remember, and I need to tell this story, man, because I just remember this. When I got sent to a level 3, the main difference was on a level 4, wherever you moved on that boulevard, the officers had to be with you. On a level 3, if the officer said, "Hey, go to medical," they'll open the door, you go to medical. I had became so institutionalized from being on a level 4 that I had got called to medical, and I walked down to the front door, from my building, and I just stood there on the boulevard, and I was just waiting for a CO to come escort me down the boulevard. And another CO was like, "Hey, man, you okay? Where you where you supposed to be going?" I was like, are you supposed to be taking me to medical, right? He's like, nah, you just walk there by yourself. So yeah, it was moments like that, stepping down. And then level 2s are just the difference between, I guess, the cutoff where it becomes severe to less severe is between that 3 and a 2 where I was at. Because then it goes from prison to dorm style. And dorms typically are safer, at least where I was at.
I'm blessed to spend quite a bit of my time actually mentoring young men who are around the age of 19 and 20 in their early 20s and even early 30s. People these days are comparing themselves to what's on IG, what's on
Yeah,
social media, and people are
yeah.
still trying to find out who they are. With that said, I just like to ask you just a couple questions, about the experience. Were there predators in prison? Can you tell just a little bit about the prison culture that may encourage our youth to not go there?
Yeah, I mean, man, prison is full of predators on every level. You're surrounded by murderers, con men, thieves, manipulators. Everybody in there, for the most part, is trying to survive. Very few people are okay financially. It's just one of those environments where there's no rest, there's no peace,
Yeah.
because everybody is just on go in there. You've got sexual predators that'll try you. I don't care how gangster you are, how big you are. If they feel like you're new to a compound, or they strike up a conversation, you go for it. Hey, they might try you. I've seen individuals, 6'5", running around on camps where the police would let them right back out of the hole after they, SA'd somebody, on the camp. And the
SA,
guards
I'm
did,
sorry, sir. What's that?
yeah, sexually assault.
Sexual. Got it.
Yeah. But after he SA'd somebody, they'll let them right back out onto the institution because the police don't care. You know what I'm saying? I've seen individuals lose their life over, or lives over, less than $1, over a bag of chips, Moon Lodge, two ramen noodles.
Oh,
You
wow.
know, I've seen it all, man. I've seen fathers turn on sons inside of prison.
Mm.
It's just nowhere you want to be. Whoever attempts to glorify prison or prison life to you, or you think it's okay, it's not cool in there, man. There's nothing cool about sleeping surrounded by concrete and steel. A bunch of people you don't want to be around, you wouldn't be around. Like, it's just bad. And then I would also say this: what America needs to know, the violence level in the jails and the prisons has escalated.
Man.
That it's went from a time where you wouldn't see a knife in jail. Now there's knives in jails. People are dying, getting stabbed to death in the jails. So
You
it's everything's escalating.
you mentioned fathers turning on sons. Now, I've seen at least one movie with
Mhm.
that plot in there. Does that happen a lot where family members end up in the same prison? Is that unusual or is that something that happens quite a bit?
No, it happens quite a bit. Incarceration's modern day slavery. It's not uncommon to see generations inside the same prison or in the same cell. It just is what it is. Another one of those things that's not really spoke of. But one thing that we pass on, unfortunately, a lot of times our people, is prison.
Right.
So you do see the grandfathers and the father. I've been on an institution where the grandfather, the father, and the son were all in the same father.
Wow. Life, what would you like for people to know about you?
Oh man. When you see me, you're not looking at me. You're looking at Jefferson Ellie. You're looking at Andre McLean. You're looking at countless individuals that are incarcerated, juveniles, women included, innocent people that are incarcerated, um, wrongfully accused. You're seeing somebody that works hard every day to be a representation, a voice for oftentimes those that are the voiceless. And that's it. I do a lot. People are like, "What do you do?" I do a lot, but everywhere you see me doing that.
This is only part one of our interview with Christopher Life Willars. Don't worry, there's more. We'll talk about his love story, his school, how he helps the community, shares his story, and how he deals with PTSD, and find out why we have a moment that gets this man choked up. Meanwhile, go spread joy with a contagious smile, and a hug doesn't hurt. You never know what life you might be changing or whose heart you might be healing. Catch you next time.